Welcome back, you guys, to another week of civics. As you can tell, I'm feeling the fall vibes today, so I decided to do this video in front of my fire with my dog, with my cup of tea and a cozy sweater. As I'm filming this, it's kind of stormy outside. It feels like the first day of fall, which I'm kind of digging. I hope some of you were able to catch the vice presidential debate last week. If you weren't able to, that's cool. There are still 2 debates that are scheduled to take place between now and the election in November. Last week, I asked you guys to kind of start thinking about where you stand on some of the issues that are commonly debated in this country. These are things that, as an informed citizen, as you get older, you should probably have some sort of opinion on it. And you probably noticed that some of those issues are pretty controversial. And I just need to clarify that I never want to impose my own political views on you guys. I truly believe that the purpose of school should be to teach you guys how to think, not what to think. Our assignment this week is to ask ourselves a foundational question to civics and the world that we live in. And that question is, why government? And in order to ask this question, we kind of have to get into the history side of things. Let's check out your assignment for this week. We have yet to answer a very important question when it comes to civics. That question is, why government? It might seem obvious that humans need leadership, but why do we allow ourselves to be ruled over by that thing we call a government? And what can we do if that government is bad? These are a couple of the questions that Thomas Hobbes and John Locke spent a lot of time arguing about 350 years ago. These guys were political philosophers, basically professional thinkers, whose ideas became so popular that the United States used them when creating our own government. Your assignment this week is to learn a little bit about their different ideas about government. To do this, you'll need background knowledge and some new vocabulary terms. So maybe some of you have heard of these guys, but I'm assuming most of you probably haven't. But they're so important that my 10th graders actually learn about them too. See, these guys were part of an important movement called the Enlightenment. People like Hobbes and Locke during the Enlightenment were asking questions that were kind of dangerous at the time. They were questioning the way that governments were being run in their world. And it's important to remember that they were doing this during a time that kings and queens and royal families were still the dominant form of government. But Enlightenment thinkers like Hobbes and Locke dared to ask why. In the source that you're going to read, this guy right here, you'll learn a little bit about these historical figures and what their contribution was to our thinking about government. And there's a few key concepts that you'll have to know for this class. The first one is the concept of a state of nature. You can think about the state of nature as the world if everyone was just acting on their own human nature. If there were no governments, no one was in charge, what would that world look like? And you'll see that these guys, Hobbes and Locke, actually disagreed about what that world would look like. But they did agree that they wouldn't want to live in it. And government is the way that we keep that from happening. Another important concept that we need to learn about are natural rights. Think about these as rights that we have not as citizens, but as human beings. As you're reading the source, keep an eye out for the 3 things that John Locke in particular says are our natural rights. Finally, we have the concept of the social contract. This is a way that Hobbes and Locke started to think about our relationship with the government. And it's kind of like real life. If I asked you to sign a contract, you would have to obey that contract or break it. So as you're reading the source, be thinking about how that concept of a contract applies to the way these guys thought about the government. I did my best to include everything you need in one assignment this week, and you should be able to find everything you need on the Google Slides attached to this assignment. If you are working on Google Classroom, you can just type directly onto the Google Slides. And if you are working on a flash drive, you can write your answers on a separate document and then make sure that they get into the correct folder. All right, that is what I have for you this week, you guys. I hope you have an awesome week, and please reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to the Enlightenment, so I am happy to help in any way I can. Cheers.